Oh, hey guys, Lee with LG Speed and Custom here, and in this video we are going to turn this cardboard template into a louvered front valence for Kirby's 32 Ford Roadster. So here we are, yet another video on Kirby's 32 Roadster. I'm actually in the middle of doing a video right now on putting the quick change rear end back in after it got painted. However, we got a little bit held up on parts. We had a bit of an issue with brakes, getting brakes. Well, we got brakes finally. They fit great. However, Kirby and I both agree that the backing plates should probably get chromed before we put them on. So they're over at the chrome shop right now. And in the meantime, we're gonna build a front valence for Kirby's 32 Roadster. He came up with this idea in his sleep and he drew up a little sketch, and this is basically what he wants to do. So this is gonna sit in the frame rails up front. This is the profile of the grille here, and here is our front spreader bar. 3 rows of louvers, and then he's gonna do a little bit of lettering in there. Kirby is he's a retired sign painter, so hand lettering that's kind of his thing. So, I made a template. I didn't film making the template because we weren't sure if we were going to do this originally. The template was just to make sure it still looked as cool in person as it did in Kirby's head. And so I made a template yesterday, sprayed some black paint on it, mocked it up in there. Kirby likes it. It's exactly what he envisioned. So let's build it. We'll drag some 18 gauge sheet metal over here. Lay this out on with some magnets, trace it, cut it out. The whole idea of this louvered splash pan is to fit in with this belly pan that I made a couple videos back for the rear of Kirby's 32. This tucks up behind, it goes this way, tucks up behind, the quick change is right here, or tailpipes come out there. And yeah, it's just to kind of tie the front and back together to make it all, you know, continuity throughout the car. So the last video we made this, and since then Kirby's son has painted it, and then Kirby put some red stripes on the end of each louver. So once we get the quick change all buttoned up in the back, then we can put this piece in for good. But in the meantime, I've got some 18 gauge up on the table here, so we'll trace this out. Just gonna use some brake clean and clean the sheet metal off. This is 18 gauge gold rolled steel sheet metal, and it comes with a little grease coating on it, I think just to give it a little bit of protection. However, Sharpies don't really like it that much. So we'll put our cardboard template up along this front straight edge here, and I just use magnets to hold this stuff in place as I'm making it. So we're gonna have to make this in a couple pieces. Our original plan was these ends here, I was just gonna fold them 90 degrees. However, I quickly realized the frame horns that we're running or mounting this flush with, they're not straight, they're curved. So if I had a tipping die for my bead roller, it'd be no problem. Unfortunately, I don't have a tipping die. Found one on Amazon for 40 bucks, was gonna order it, but it would be like a week and a bit before it got here, and we got to keep going. We got to make progress on this. So the whole point of this project was to fill time while we wait for parts. So we'll make it in, I think we can make it in a couple pieces, and it'll be great. It'll work out. Just going to use a Sharpie and trace this, and then go ahead and cut it out. We've got our piece cut out. I haven't cut these out yet. Those little notches there are for the license plate bracket. So Kirby wants to do a bead roll along this edge and also along this edge. So I was thinking it's probably easier to put the bead roll in before cutting these out. So this one, I'm not too worried about down here because that's going to be folded down behind the spreader bar. So if it does get a little joink in it, probably never ever see it, especially since it's getting painted black. This one, however, is pretty crucial that we make that as straight as possible. So I'll probably get Jim to give me a hand running the bead roller. And one of us will steer it through and the other one will crank the bead roller over and make it go round. If it does get weird, it doesn't work out, it's no big deal. We can just throw this piece away, cut another piece out. It's just metal. I've got the dies set up in the bead roller here. I picked this particular die because it's almost the same profile as the grill, the 32 grill. And I put a fence clamped, well, not a fence, but a piece of square tubing on here to act like a fence. And I'm gonna do the easy side first. So the distance from this edge right here to our tubing is the same distance as from this line right here to the edge of our die. So when the tubing sits up against here, the end of our sheet metal is right on there, which should give us our die in the right on the edge. All right, our little bead rolls are done. They turned out pretty good. So now we got to put a little bit of curve into this just to get it to follow the shape of the frame horn. So for that, probably just gonna find something round and bend it over it. That'll work. All right, should we put our brake in it now? We're gonna bend this down so that it slides behind our spreader bar. Actually, before we break that, let's notch these guys. They're for the license plate bracket, which sits right there. I just put this tape on just so that when I put it back together, I know where it's supposed to be. Okay, here's our first mock-up. So we're about a 1/16 of an inch too wide right now on each side, so it's actually sitting on top of the frame horns instead of, we want it to drop down so that it's flush. So yeah, that's no big deal though. I'll probably just take a Sharpie from the underside and trace it, and then we can trim to fit, and then start figuring out how to mount it. Just tracing this from the back side on both sides. So you can see how much overlap we have here. I think I'm gonna take just this guy here and just shave that down. I think I'll go up to the purple line and try it. And if we gotta go more, then we can go more. We might end up taking the purple line right off. But we'll try it up to the purple line first. We've got it trimmed down now that it sits in between the frame rails. So now we got to figure out how to hold it in place. Right now, I've just got a couple magnets stuck to the frame rail that it's sitting on, and they don't work that great. So yeah, we got to figure out how to mount this. Kirby doesn't want any exposed fasteners, which makes it a bit of a challenge. And he doesn't want to drill any holes in the side of the frame in case he decides he doesn't like this and wants to remove it. He doesn't have holes anymore. So we're going to have to figure out how to mount it from underneath. He's okay if I drill holes in the bottom of the frame. So we'll have to build something that'll, a little tab that comes off and comes up. We also have to figure out how to get it in and out, because this will only fit from the top going down, and if we have tabs coming in, that's not going to work. So we might have to build some sort of bracket that will bolt on here and come up, and then have another bracket maybe spot welded to there that comes down with a, I don't know, a nut and bolt or something through there. I don't know. I haven't figured this out yet, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna sit here and stare at it and come up with a plan. So what I'm thinking is, if I take a piece of sheet metal, say 1 inch, like a 1 inch strip, and fold it 90 degrees, so I got a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch, I can use the shrinker stretcher and contour it to this shape, and then that will give me a flat flange right here. And off that flange, we could have a piece that bolts on, comes down, folds 90 degrees, and drill and tap a hole into the bottom of the frame here. Probably, I don't know if we need 3, but maybe 1 flange or bracket that comes down there, and 1 at the back here that comes down. And we could even slot the holes in it, and then you can adjust this if you need to fine tune it up to our frame rail height, just to get it, you know, perfectly flush. So that's the best idea I've got. So let's try that. Why not? So I got some scraps here that we can cut our little strips out of before we use the shear. We got some fan mail here. Maybe we should open that up. We actually got this the other day. This is a super cool blue streak finned coil that Mark Nelson in Montana sent to me. So super cool. Thanks a bunch, Mark. I hope this works. If it works, we can find a home. If it doesn't work, maybe we can dissect this out of it and make it so that a normal coil or a new coil will fit in there. So thanks, Mark Nelson from Montana. Didn't Frank Zappa move to Montana? I think he did. Okay, and now we've got another one from Australia post. This is from Frank in Australia. Let's open it up, see what we got. Oh man, it's really taped up. There we go. Cool. A black garbage bag. We have those here in Canada too. Let's see what's inside. Kids, size 4. This must be for Lux. Oh, how cool is that? 2024 Hot Rod Custom Auto Expo in Sydney, Australia. Super cool. We got a 33 or 34 3-window coupe on there, and then a 49 Ford coupe with a massive blower. Typical Australians. So awesome. Well, thank you, Frank. What else we got in here? Something heavy. We got a pink hat. Aussie Retro Trucker. Cool. And a toque, or his beanies, as they call them in the States. I don't know. What do you call these in Australia? In Canada, we call this a toque. Cool. So, thanks, Frank. And then we got some heavy stuff in here. Wrapped in styrofoam. Oh, cool. That is a solid brass Ford A. Must be Model A. Shift knob? I think that's a shift knob. Sure looks like a shift knob to me. That thing is heavy. And what's this one? Cool, this one just says Ford on it. Awesome, a Model A one. And then one for not a Model A. Those are so cool. Those are heavy. Like, if you're shifting gears and that flew off, you could break a back window. So, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Frank. Really appreciate this. And thanks to Mark as well. All right, let's cut some metal. Okay, we want 2 pieces, 8 inches long by 1 inch wide. There's our 8. Here's our 1. Okay, let's fold these 90 degrees and then we'll drag the shrinker stretcher over and make that work. So here's our piece. We've got just a basic straight 90 degree. We need to make it follow. Let's get this out of here so you can see a little better. Yeah, we need it to follow the contour of this. And to do that, we're going to use the shrinker stretcher. So the shrinker stretcher has one side that stretches and one side that shrinks. And what you do is, if we want this to curve that way, if we take this edge here and put it in the stretcher, in the shrinking side, and put a couple little shrinks in here, that will get this to start to curve this way. If we were to put it in the stretch side and stretch this little flange out, that's going to get it to curve the other way. So we'll probably mostly just be using the shrinking side on this, and we'll just kind of shrink it along until it fits nice. If we go a little bit too much, we just got to go over to the stretch side and stretch it out a little bit. So how this works is you've got your foot pedal down here, and the foot pedal moves these little jaws in and out. So if you put your piece in there and it's step on the pedal, this is going to clamp it down and then squeeze it together. And that just forces the metal to go together. If we go on the other side, to the stretch side, it does the opposite. It pulls it apart. So this is pretty basic entry-level metal shaping stuff, and it works great for what we're about to do. So we'll slide it in there, and you don't need to go much, just a little bit. I've got my thumb on the end here, and I'm going to use that as a guide. Move it over to that side. Little shrink. Little shrink. Little shrink. We've probably gone too much already, which is fine. We can straighten it out on the stretch side. Actually, that is almost perfect. We've got just a touch too much right in the middle, like just a tiny, tiny little bit. So if we go to the stretch side and ever so slightly, just a little tiny bit. Perfect. Look at that, it fits that contour just absolutely perfect. Okay, we're gonna do another one for that side, and then we'll spot weld these to our main piece. So these are both made. We've got driver's side with the front labeled and passenger side with the front labeled. So they're just gonna get spot welded right to this edge here. And that should conclude step one to our bracket. So we'll use our hole punch here, punch 3 holes in there and spot weld it in. I've got some vice grips holding this in place, and it's fitting really nice. I'm happy with it. So now we can go underneath and figure out our other bracket. All right, so here's what I've come up with. It's just a simple little bracket like that that's gonna fit pretty much like that. We'll probably cut these at an 1/8 inch so they got a little bit of strength to them. We'll do a slotted hole in the top and just a regular hole in the bottom. So a regular hole in the bottom will just thread and tap into the frame, and then our top one is slotted so that we can go up and down. Same thing for the front, just a little bit shorter. So I'll go draw these up on the plasma table and cut them out, and we'll give it a try. I've taken my little templates here and drawn up to that. The little tangs sticking out are the fold lines, so we can cut this out at 1/8 inch now and give it a try. Our brackets are all cut out, cleaned them up in the belt sander, folded them 90 degrees in the press brake. Forgot to push record for that part, so you'll just have to take my word for it that I did it. Let's take these over to the car and fit them up. All right, so that should sit in there just like that. I'll put a mark on the tape, and then we can drill and tap a hole there. And I'll put a mark on our flange, and then we can drill a hole in that as well. All All my holes are marked. We'll give them a center punch. And then I'm going to drill them with a 13/64 so that we can thread it to 1/4 inch. So naturally on the last hole, I broke my tap off flush. So that sucks. I'll dig that out of there somehow, I guess. I got it. Jim just ran to the hardware store to get another tap, so I have got the 3 that worked out. They're bolted on, and I've gone ahead and drilled our holes in our little flange here. So now we can mock it up. I'm somewhat tempted to weld nuts on the backside of here just to make it a little easier to put it together. But we'll give it a try first. Oh, here comes Jim back from the store with the new tap. So I just attempted a mock-up on this after tapping the last hole, and there's no way I can get my fingers in there to get nuts on. So I'm just gonna weld them on now and then not worry about it in the future. All right, let's try this again. We're all bolted up underneath here. Those little tabs worked out pretty good. So now we can, let's peel our tape away and see how it looks. Nice. I think that'll work good. Louvers up next. So just like when we did the rear valence, we're working on the inside here, and we found our center line. This is going to be our first row of louvers here. So Kirby only wants to do 3 rows in the front because his whole idea is to have a row of louvers, a row of louvers, a row of louvers, and then he wants to do some lettering on the corner here. So we need a flat spot for him to letter. So we'll find our center line, and from there we are going to go 4.5 inches off our center line, and that's where our second set of louvers is going to start. Mark that out on both sides, and then draw those straight lines, and that should conclude our layout. From here we can go over to the louver press and start punching holes. So just like when we did the rear valence, we're going to put just a little bit of transmission fluid on here to just kind of lubricate the dies. It makes them easier to go through. So we'll slide this in and line our center line up. Start bringing it down. And I've got a square that I put on the back of the louver die, and I just make sure that everything is straight. Gotta adjust a little bit. All right, here we go. slide back, line our center line up. Double check we're still square. All right, let's punch a bunch of louvers. All right, our louvers are all punched. The only thing that's different, oh man, I think I just ran out of wax and grease remover. I'm just cleaning up the little bit of transmission fluid that I used on there. So, as I was saying, the only thing that's different from Kirby's sketch to the real deal is he had 4 louvers in the center instead of 3, but 4 don't fit, so we got 3. I'm going to wipe this thing down and then maybe test fit it one more time just to make sure it didn't distort any while we were punching holes. And if it all fits good, then we can go ahead and do a little bit of body work on this before Kirby's son Brett paints it, just where we've got some spot welds that I did here. And although it's, you know, pretty smooth to the touch, this is getting painted black, so I'll probably just skim coat this little area here just with a little bit of body filler, and then it'll be nice and straight. So the mock-up of this guy, once the louvers are back on, it is great. Really happy with that. What I have discovered though is I tested the license plate brackets, put them on, and I went to bolt one of my louvered aluminum license plates on and realized that the bolt holes don't line up. And that's when I realized that this Missouri plate that's on the car, I don't even know why there's a Missouri plate on this car, because Missouri is a different country, and I don't even know really where Missouri is. I know it's somewhere in the States, couldn't tell you where. But what I discovered is we are 3 1/8 on this side, and we are 3 5/8 on this side, which means we're quite a bit out. So I think I'm going to make some marks on the backside here, and these little license plate notches that I based them off of where this plate originally was. It's being crooked from day one, and I never noticed before. So yeah, we'll make some marks and we'll open this back up. Maybe oblong it 1/2 inch this way and 1/2 inch this way, and that will, 1, it'll get our plate centered, and 2, then it'll have some adjustment so that we can fit a normal sized license plate on here, because this Missouri plate, I know it says 1932 and stuff, but because it's from a different country and clearly not registered to this car, if you ever like ran into a cop that wanted to be a real dill hole, he could give you a really hard time about this. Probably give you a lot of tickets. So we'll make it so that our country's license plates, which are this size, fit. So this is why you mock everything up, all the way up, before painting. Because if this, like right now, this is no big deal. But if this piece was painted and then we went to put this together, that's a big deal. All right, so if we go from our frame horn to there, we've got 5 3/4. If we go from our frame horn to there, we've got 5 1/2. So if we open that one up a little bit, we'll even that way. Now for the other side, we've got 7 1/8. And on this side, wow, that's a lot. We are at 6 3/8. Let me find a Sharpie here. Okay, so what are we on this side? 7 1/8. 7 and an 8 puts us right there, which makes sense because this row of louvers lines up with that, and this row of louvers lines up with that. 5 3/4. So that's how much we gotta open each side up, and that will make these spaced evenly between there, and then our bracket we'll be able to adjust it, get it dead center, and we got a little bit of wiggle room side for side for different license plate sizes. So yes, there will be a bit of a gap on each side, but with this centered in there, I think it'll be fine. And it's going to be behind that anyway, so the only time you'll ever see it is if you go and like poke your head in behind there, which no one will ever do, so I'm not worried about the spacing on each side. Boom, there we go. We've got license plate adjustment now, so it will fit a standard license plate. I think all license plates in North America are this size, so if someone else buys this car in a different province or a different state, their license plate should fit. I think this one's just weird because it's a 1932 plate, so it's a lot wider. But if someone did want to run this plate, such as Kirby, for example, there's enough adjustment in here that you can spread these open a bit to fit the wider plate. And just like I predicted, when it's all put together, you don't even notice those little slots in there, so it's fine. It is great. Gonna blow it apart now, do a little bit of body work. So as I take these brackets off for paint, I'm just stamping them passenger side and driver's side so that they all go back in the same order. Where's our S? Passenger. Okay, I got a little bit of filler mixed up here, and we're just going to just give this just a skim where our spot welds are. All right, I'll let that tack up a bit and then hit it with some 40 grit. There we have it. So we've done some body filler. We went from 40 grit to 80 grit, then hit it with some glazing putty, started in 80 grit, then went to 120 grit, 220 grit, and we're finished in 320 now. So I'm gonna take this over to Brett, Kirby's son, and next time we see it, it's gonna be gloss black. Well, it's been, I don't know, about a week or so since I made the Valence, and Kirby has not brought it back from paint yet. So at the risk of not having a video for you guys this week, we'll just end the video here, I guess, and we'll put it back on when it comes back from being painted. In the meantime, I have got backing plates back from the chrome shop. So quick change is, as you can see, back in. So I'll just keep plugging away on that, and maybe next week, for our video next week, we'll have that finished up. We'll have our front valence on, and this project will be done. Ready for Kirby to go hit the streets with it. So thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. If you want to support the channel, as always, make sure to check out the website, lgspeedcustom.com. Get yourself some LG Speed and custom merch. Very much appreciated. Everyone that purchases merch off the website, that's what keeps me going. So I think I'm gonna take a break for this, actually. I'm gonna go back on my 32, which is buried in the corner right now. I'm currently working on wipers. So, thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next video.